My name is Danielle Gloy. I will be monitoring the chat today, and then leading our content is Peter Spaulding. So we both work on the Supplier Wiki team. And just a little bit about us. Here at Supplier Wiki, we create free educational content with the main goal of setting suppliers like you up for success. So we do this in a couple of different ways. For example, through webinars, we have free ebooks that you can download and articles that you can read, all available on our website. We also have a weekly newsletter that goes out. So we usually put like retailer updates in there or supplier hot topics. So if you're looking for a quick read and just want to stay updated on the industry, I'll send that link out in the chat for you to sign up. Okay, so moving on to the agenda, we are going to start off the webinar with a brief overview on what SupplierOne is. Then we will go over some of the platform's main features. We have seen a lot of updates occur in this area, so we'll discuss all of them today, and then just how you can optimize each feature. After we have gone through the content portion, we will do a live Q&A with Peter and myself, and then we'll wrap up the webinar with a bonus product preview of our Walmart solution. So lots of great stuff to cover today. All right, so here are a few FAQs that we typically get during webinars. So the first being, will be getting a copy of the slide deck? Yes, absolutely. So we always send a copy of the slide deck in PDF format, as well as the recording of this webinar. So that should appear in your email inbox in about 3 to 4 business days. If you go to our website, you can also find all of our past webinar recordings and a PDF of those slide decks available to download. And then the second question that we often get is, what is the best way to ask a question? So at the bottom of your screen, you will see a chat tab and then like a Q&A tab. So the chat tab is going to be a great place to engage with the group or to share any insights that you may have. And then the best way to submit a question is through that Q&A tab, because I'll be able to monitor them and then tee them up for Peter for the Q&A time at the end. Okay, so last thing we have here is introducing you to SupplyPike. I introduced you to Supplier Wiki earlier. We are just a part within SupplyPike. SupplyPike is actually a platform that helps suppliers get paid and get better. So this is done with a software that identifies, recovers, and prevents deductions and compliance issues. So we do this in a lot of different ways and with multiple different retailers. Some things we specifically cover at Walmart include like AP deductions, OTIF, SQEP, overages, etc. So anything that could be impacting your bottom line, we have built these tools to help target and resolve those revenue loss issues. We will be touching on this in the product preview at the end, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, I'm going to hand it over to Peter to get in today's content.
Thank you, Danielle. And thank you, everyone, for showing up and contributing today. We've got some polls, so we'll be wanting to hear a little bit from you as well. With SupplierOne, the tricky thing is just that it's new, but it's big. It can do so many different things. So we'll be keeping our finger on the pulse of how that's going for you guys, just to kind of, just to scope it out. How is SupplierOne functioning as a kind of replacement for some of these other retail link apps? So SupplierOne, really the mindset behind it from Walmart's perspective is to get a lot of the disparate retail link apps together in the same place and to help kind of streamline and help suppliers prioritize supplier action. So whatever that is on maybe on the item side of things or maybe on the deduction side of things, whatever it might be, let's get all of those together in one place so that we can have a dashboard that will kind of help people to fix their priorities in ways that Walmart wants them to be fixed. So all of this, again, take with a grain of salt. This is Walmart's perspective on what the supplier's priorities should be. But at the same time, suppliers are still motivated to think in those terms because there can be serious revenue loss whenever those thresholds aren't met. So that's the main kind of idea. I like to think of it in terms of triage, which is a word that I use a lot whenever we're talking about the supplier life in major retailers. It's really hard to understand what the priorities should be, which deductions to go after first, which ones you can delay a little bit. All of that is a pretty kind of tricky thing, especially when it comes to accounting. But when it comes to other things like item setup or the right kind of item level detail and reporting, things like that, it's very difficult to create your own kind of individual system of prioritization. So in some ways, this is helpful for suppliers, I would think, because it gives them it gives them a sense of what Walmart thinks their priorities should be. So that's kind of the main sort of heart behind it. In Q2 of this year, we should probably add in the year there just in case you're downloading the slide deck so you can see that. Walmart announced that SupplyerOne would replace Item 360, and now it has. So now SupplyerOne is basically an essential for all Walmart suppliers. It's replacing now major institutions in Retail Link. So does that mean that Walmart is eventually going to migrate all suppliers onto SupplyerOne from Retail Link? Is SupplyerOne a long-term Retail Link replacement? We don't really know. Aspen was another Retail Link app that has recently been replaced by SupplyerOne. So there seems to be this trend kind of moving in this direction. Perhaps Walmart just wants to have a different platform, have a different kind of setup for their suppliers that will help them with that whole process. So we'll dig into that, the details of that a little bit more here in a little bit. Retail Link is still, I think, an essential for suppliers. There's most of the communication that Walmart does with their suppliers is through Retail Link. There's still a lot of essential functions in there that you don't find anywhere else. So it's not yet, SupplyerOne isn't yet a complete replacement of it, but there are a lot of mirrored functions from the major Retail Link apps like APDP and Nova and Item 360. So these apps are now being replicated. They're being reproduced in SupplyerOne. There's some minor differences, but not a ton. So basically, that's what we're looking at as of now. We're not yet confident that Retail Link is going away. It's still an essential kind of what we've called it here is a one-stop shop platform for all or most things essential to supplier performance. Things like Luminate. Luminate is not in Retail Link. It used to be DSS, and DSS did live in Retail Link. So you would do all of your reporting was through an app in Retail Link as well. But again, we've seen this trend of moving things out of Retail Link into either SupplyerOne or a new kind of platform. So yes, we're still kind of all over the place. Retail Link is a major pain point for a lot of suppliers. It's not a great platform, but it was nice having everything in one place. Now you have SupplyerOne, you have Retail Link, and you have Luminate, and they should all be utilized at different times or by different team members at a retailer team in a supplier. So yeah, there's a lot that's going on now, and that's kind of one of the downsides of this is they all have the same creds. So if you're logging into SupplyerOne, you're going to use your Retail Link creds. If you're logging into Luminate, you're going to use the Retail Link creds. And you still have a Retail Link admin who's going to be the one who kind of controls all of that or communicates with Walmart about all of that. But it's getting a little bit spread out. So I'm curious to see what the future of all of that is. Luminate is going to be now Scintilla in 2025. They're calling it Scintilla. I don't know if it's Skintilla. I hope it's not pronounced Skintilla. I think it's pronounced Scintilla. That will be the new kind of rebranding of Luminate, but it's going to be the same thing. As far as we know, as of now, it's just a name change. But yeah, there's different platforms for different things that you need to do. So, but yes, SupplyerOne, we like to call a secondary platform like Luminate. It's not the primary platform. It's a secondary platform with some major overlap with the major Retail Link apps. So it's a concentration of those tools in one place, especially item management, returns management, deductions, things like that. We'll get into all of those kind of details here in a little bit. So touched on this a little bit. We're not totally sure where it's going. Is SupplyerOne supposed to be a long-term Retail Link replacement? We don't know. In the early trainings and announcements of SupplyerOne, I think it was just this time last year that they started rolling it out in their early adopter program. Basically, there was a lot of language of like, we're not gonna we're not replacing these apps as of now. That was the language that they were using. And then Item 360 went away. Aspen has gone away now too. So maybe this is the long-term replacement, but we're not totally sure. So we're going to do our first Zoom poll of the day. So we've got a few of you in here. We just want to hear from you about what your SupplierOne user experience has been like so far. Have you used it? Have you not? Has it been smooth sailing? Not great. You miss Item 360, or you're still trying to figure it out. I think for those of you who haven't used it yet either, could apply there too. Okay. I think we got some submissions. Yeah, we have so we have most people are selecting that third option. They're still trying to figure out the platform. And of course, if you're here, that kind of makes sense. You're here to learn a little bit more about it. And then we have one person saying, yeah, smooth sailing. It's been going really well so far too. So that's great. We like to hear that. As far as the transition from something like an Item 360 to SupplierOne goes, it is a much easier transition than the transition from DSS to Luminate. DSS to Luminate was basically Walmart changing the language that they use for reporting without giving you a dictionary for translating that. So all new reports are being pulled. There's new data that Walmart wants. The Luminate data is apparently more accurate than DSS was. So a lot of people are seeing new numbers that are a little bit disturbing. And so I think by and large, when it comes to transitioning from Item 360 to SupplierOne, it hasn't been as big of a pain point. That's what I've heard. But it is a huge app, and there's a lot more that's going on in SupplierOne than just item management. So yeah, we'll look for that. I think you guys can see the results now. Maybe Danielle showed that already. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll move on. So we'll get into the main features, and if a lot of you are kind of newer to SupplierOne, this should be pretty helpful. But it's been developing a lot over the last year, so these changes are happening all of the time, and it's important to kind of stay up with that as well. I want to call out the ship point management in SupplierOne is a new feature. This is a pretty new development. That was Aspen and Retail Link, and Aspen itself was a pretty new app in Retail Link, no more than 2 years old or a year and a half old. So this is the rate of change that we're looking at. If SupplierOne is going to become a new hub of all of the essential things for suppliers, then we might see other bigger apps like Nova, APDP get migrated into SupplierOne and Retail Link kind of phased out. And really the Aspen, the ship point management feature in SupplierOne screams that to me, because it was a new app. There had been a lot of work that people had put into developing it. APDP is not that old of an app either. I think it was direct commerce. It was what people were using for disputing AP deductions before. And then in the last, I want to say 4 or 5 years, they switched over to APDP. Well, that's an enormous amount of work that goes into the development of that app in Retail Link. So for Walmart to be creating new apps in Retail Link and then offloading them in the matter of a few years, that's pretty, that should be sending a message at least of one kind or another. So I want to call that out. Aspen is now gone. It was new. Maybe you never heard of it. It's gone. And now it lives in ship point management in SupplierOne. But yeah, so we've called out the branded app names in Retail Link here on the right, and the mirrored functionality that those correspond to with the left nav in SupplierOne. So the first one there, order management, that's your Nova. So that's your POs, all of your orders, all of that stuff that you're doing in Nova. You can now do that in order management as well. Nova is still up as far as I know. Let us know. Definitely let us know in the chat if Nova is gone. That would be big news. But as of now, I think it's just the functionality that's mirrored. So you could do all of your order management stuff in Nova still if you wanted to, or you could do it in SupplierOne. Nova, I think, is also a relatively new app in Retail Link. I don't know what it replaced, but so with big, super important apps like Nova and APDP, it's really hard to imagine those going away really quickly and everything migrating over to SupplierOne. But yeah, that's kind of the state of things. Item 360 was really big. It was so important, and now it's gone. So that is in items and inventory, which is your second little item there on the sidebar. Ship point management, which was Aspen. You've got payments, so that's payments and deductions data / info. So we'll get into that a little bit because that's really our wheelhouse. SupplyPike's wheelhouse is deductions management basically, and disputing. And then reports. So those are your consolidated reports there. And you've got the performance tab and demand forecasts. The performance is you're looking at basically returns reporting and trends and different scorecards. And then you have your store demand forecast, daily demand and inventory record, and demand and forecast down there. So we'll cover these in a little bit of detail here, but we've got some deep dives on these individual ones as well if you're interested in those too. Order management. So this is designed to replicate and improve upon some of the functionality in Retail-Link's Nova. Order management is designed to keep track of orders by a number of different filters, of course. So past due, ship today, new, cancellation request, and closed orders. This is all really essential stuff for avoiding fines as well. And we always, maybe it's not the best way to think about it, but we're always thinking in terms of money and in terms of fines. So order management is really kind of close to that as well. We're not talking about deductions. We're not talking about accounting yet, but it's intimately connected because all of this stuff will affect that as well. If you're really on top of your order management, you're going to save yourself a ton of money in shortages and overages down the road as well, right? So, but this is what your dashboard looks like. You've got the PO number, supply chain, your 9-digit agreement number. So that's your category specific number there. And then you've got the MABD, original MABD, if there's a discrepancy there, if it's been changed, that will be reflected there too. So you can look at all that. You can filter by a time frame, and that's all there too. So this now has full visibility of all import orders, right? So it's fully kind of up to date. And the change eliminates the need to switch between different systems to manage import orders. So you don't need to go into multiple apps. Order information can be exported into an Excel file with options for header, line, or distribution level data. So you can get really kind of granular with that as well. And then you can track your POs in real time, which is really helpful as well. We've got the pathway to get to looking at those right there. Got to click on the individual PO. Suppliers can also take other actions like you can update orders with import PO revision, and you can download order details with import PO delivery, as well as, of course, checking on that order status. So a lot like Nova, a lot like what would be going on there. That's all happening there. So that communication with Walmart about individual POs is what's going on there. In items and inventory, it's not just kind of one page with a dashboard with different things that you can click into. It's broken down into a few different things, right? Of course, you want to be able to look at your catalog at any time, but you're going to be creating new items here. You're going to be maintaining or editing item information here as well. And then you've got that submissions manager for tickets and different kinds of things that are going on too. So items and inventory, it's more built out, I guess you could say. There's just more things that you have to do with items that are categorically different from each other than you would with orders. So we'll look into these a little bit here. The catalog is where you've got everything there, and you can break it down by the Walmart item number or the GTIN/UPC. So you can look at things basically by how you're categorizing items and how Walmart's categorizing items. So super important for following up on that there too. Your setup hub, that's where you're going to do your item setup too. So if you want to add an item proposal, that'll happen there as well. And then you can set up shippers and multi-boxes. The e-com items that ship in multiple boxes is what those are. You can do all of that there. Maintenance Hub, I talked about this a little bit already, but this is where you can go in for everything that falls under the big umbrella of item maintenance. So you have product content, site experience details, which is just, all the rage right now. It's so important to have good SEO within the .com platform. And then item configuration and supply chain, DSV inventory, imagery and rich media. Again, these are like the big things that everyone's talking about when it comes to really growing your Walmart business or really growing your retailer business in any of the major retailers, is having that .com optimization and omni-channel optimization. And then submissions manager, that's where you're going to have communications with Walmart about that whole process. So like any other ticket management sort of platform, you're going to have your different statuses there as well. Is this something that Walmart needs to work on or something that I need to work on? And then you can look at the back order of completed tickets as well. But that's what's going on there. So that's just for item specific things. Catalog dashboard is going to look a little bit like this. And they'll have the really nice, really content quality score here too, which is really helpful if you want to filter by that, and you can kind of do some triage that way. Again, with prioritizing what are the biggest needs. How are our highest performing items doing? Do they have a low score? That could be a major point of revenue loss as well, or a growth opportunity too. It doesn't always have to be so negative. The setup hub looks like this. This is very similar to the way that the SupplierOne dashboard used to look like. It used to have a kind of an items and inventory bias, I would say. But yeah, you can do item proposals, set up new GTINs in the item section. You can do shipper setup and multi-box for e-com, all there, and it's broken down nicely into those four. Maintenance hub looks like this. So there's a bunch of different things that you might want to do to make your items more searchable on Walmart.com, or to have more kind of to smooth out the supply chain, maybe in item configuration and all that. So, but yeah, that's what maintenance hub is really kind of primarily for. You can really maximize the .com presence in that maintenance hub. So this is a newer kind of feature that we wanted to highlight in the maintenance hub, is product type maintenance. This will allow suppliers to directly update the product type for existing items without filing tickets. So it kind of just takes some of the time out of that process. It helps ensure the correct product type is assigned, which is what's going to help drive the necessary attributes for better content quality. Again, just more sales, better .com performance, and all of that. So submitted changes will still be reviewed and approved by the content operations team, but it should lead to enhanced search and browse experiences for customers, boosting all of that. That's what Walmart wants. That's what you guys want, and everyone can be aligned on that. And then this is your submissions manager. Big call out here, of course. They got the nice little color-coded status updates. Very simple statuses as well, which may be nice. It may have to grow in the future with something like supplier action. Are they going to get more specific about what that actually is in the status in order to kind of make it a smoother transition? All that remains to be seen. But for now, it's basically, this is your job, this is my job, this is discarded, this is complete. That's basically all that is really being communicated there. Okay, payments and charges. This is really super important tab. This is the APDP functionality. So a lot of people are still using APDP. I don't know if this is exactly completely up to date with everything that you can do in APDP. Something like mass dispute creation. I think maybe we'll cover this on later slides, and I'm forgetting. I don't know if you can do mass dispute creation in SupplierOne yet. So it may be that this isn't completely up to speed, but there is still a lot of that. You can look at your deductions, and you can look at your payment history, and you can look at your disputes all here. So Yeah, not completely up to date, but it looks like it's getting there. It looks like we're moving to a place where APDP, everything you can do there, you can do in SupplierOne. But yeah, basically this is just all things kind of related to money and to money discrepancies, to fines and deductions on the AP side of things. Again, we're talking about AP deductions. We're talking about deductions generally. We're not talking about compliance fines. Those are different things, even though they're really functioning in similar ways. All of that is still going to live in high radius for now. As of now is the language that Walmart likes to use. So yeah, but you can really dive into the details about deductions in this platform, and that's what your dashboard is going to look like. You can filter by individual supplier IDs or all of them. And then you can filter by date of the PO. You got a bunch of different date ranges there. Okay, so Walmart is breaking this down basically by kind of deduction. So receiving, that's going to be your like shortages and overages. Negotiated funding is very similar to allowances in that this is stuff that really your supplier agreement is going to cover. And then you've got invoice and returns there as well. This isn't universal language within Walmart for how they want us to think about AP deductions necessarily. We don't hear a lot of talk about receiving. We hear a lot of talk about shortages and overages. So yeah, all of that is kind of new, I guess, new language for categorizing these AP deductions. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. And here we have, of course, the receiving is gonna take up such a big portion of that. Shortages, overages, these are the real kind of the big boys when it comes to revenue loss, and they're the ones that really most people are going to be focusing on. So there's a new feature we want to call out here too, is the deductions breakdown. This is used to take suppliers out of this is used to take suppliers out of SupplyOne, but it's now accessible through a link built into the platform. You can view the deduction based off of the PO date, invoice date, check date, whatever it is. So it's a cool new feature we wanted to highlight. Payment history. So this is going to track your DSV payments or the Walmart's DSV payments to the supplier, and filterable by supplier ID, distribution center, and report date. It'll also have some deductions data in there as well. Yeah, I'm going to call that out. So yeah, your PO number, your the distribution center ID, the DC name, date marked as shipped, amount paid to vendor. These are the sortable columns, and each has their own different advantages depending on what kind of insights you're looking for. But yeah, it's going to be tricky to organize. But these are helpful buckets for talking about how you can generate insights based off of that. Now you can look at your disputes as well, view disputes related to the accounts payable claims process. So that's all of your APDP disputes that you're putting through. The latest dispute data is available, and it displays up to 5,000 rows, regardless of any filters applied. So this is what it looks like here. You've got different statuses. You can have canceled, denial conceded, a bunch of other things as well. So that's what your dashboard is going to look like there, but you can filter by code. You can filter by dispute number, the 6-digit supplier ID as well. So if you have more than one of those, but that's what that looks like. We're talking about, I want to cover reports here briefly as well. This centralizes cost and payment reports, and it has fairly simple downloads process. So it's a new report feature that centralizes cost and payment reports. That's what it looks like: cost and pricing, view vendor managed pricing. You should have different file options for how you want to download that as well. It's also got different kind of there's a new report feature that centralizes cost and payment reports that looks like this as well. So you've got your within vendor managed pricing, paid invoice details, unpaid invoice details, 90 days paid detail, store sales. So that's a free Walmart Luminate report that's now kind of connected here, as well as e-commerce sales. So whenever when they're talking about free Walmart Luminate reports, what they mean is you don't need to have charter to look at those. That's essential reporting information that Walmart does not make you pay for charter to view as of now. And then for easier access, links to different Luminate reports I was just talking about here. There's some others too that they'll include there so that they can kind of promote charter as well. It's a different conversation altogether. It seems more and more like whenever we talk about any of these major platforms, we end up having to talk about all the others as well. But yeah, so some of these OTIF purchase orders, you have to have charter to look at those in Luminate for that as well. So is it worth it? That's a different question for a different day. But we talk about Luminate a lot, and we talk about that question of, is it the right business decision for you to go with charter or not in different webinars, different content. Excuse me. So our last one here is the performance tab. So this is basically pretty similar to the home tab, pretty similar to the old dashboard, the landing page for SupplyerOne. It'll give you a more of a higher level view of your content quality across the 9-digit or 6-digit supplier number, your OTIF performance and PO accuracy. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of different sort of performance metrics. But yeah, the main thing really that they're talking about is your item detail content quality, your OTIF performance, and then PO accuracy is also talked about in terms of the first phase of the supplier quality excellence program. So that's kind of living here too for now. But yeah, it's still growing out. So there's some things you can still see. You can still see and pull reports for in full e-com and store, on time e-com and store, on time collect ready, and then content quality both for e-com and in store. So you can pull all of those here with a supplier ID basically in the drop down menu, and you can look at those. You can pull those and look at those. Not so much a dashboard as a dashboard of reports that can be pulled. And then your return trends, this used to have its own tab, was the returns tab, and then they put it under performance here. But yeah, this is basically what's the state of your returns. It's broken down by GMV units and return reasons, depending on what you're looking for, how you want to actually look at it. GMV is broken down into return dollars and GMV return rate. Both of which are always, as with anything basically in these dashboards, is just going to be compared with the previous period. It'll give you that green up arrow or the red down arrow. And then units is broken down into return units and units return rate. And those are also compared against the same previous window, same previous time. So these return reasons, again, this is newer. This is a newer level of insight for something as broad as SupplyerOne, but we're really getting into the details of why is it that these that the item was returned. So some of these are customer related, some of these are retailer related. But you have changed mind, damaged, doesn't work, didn't meet expectations, incorrect or missing items, poor quality, or other. So yeah, pretty standard return reason codes there as well. And that's what your claims and returns scorecard dashboard is going to look like with those numbers compared to the previous period. Okay, so we're going to talk about ship point management now. We skipped over it in the last section because we want to highlight it. And how it's similar to Aspen, maybe some of the ways that it's different. So the language a few months ago or last month was hinting that this migration will happen officially. I think it has happened, but not totally sure. Don't have complete confirmation over that. But yeah, you've got your updates, your release notes listed here, very similar in style to the release notes in Luminate. That can be kind of helpful for, again, getting that sense of what's the long-term plan here. Let us know if you're using Aspen. Let us know in the chat. I was under the impression that Aspen was gone, that you can't actually access it anymore in Retail Link, but maybe that's premature. So what is it that you're actually doing here? Well, you're managing lead times and shipping calendars. This is the stuff that the TPSP 2.0 is really important for as well. How can you set up a new ship point? So here you can do a lot of that too. View and edit ship points. You can track the 9-digit agreements, review submitted changes or exceptions, and create new ship points or override events. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that you can do or would have done in the TSPC 2.0 or in Aspen is just kind of migrated here. You can see that breakdown up here into the 4 kind of big categories: changes under review, overrides, exceptions, 9-digit agreements, and ship points. And then if you want to create a new ship point or override event, that's going to happen there in the top right-hand corner. And then if you wanted to make edits to a shipment, you do that under the Actions tab there. So we wanted to call that out too. All right. Is this something you guys are using? Have you started using ship point management in SupplierOne? And if you have, what was that experience like? It's connected to my previous question of, do you still have access to Aspen? So it is not available to me yet is our #1 answer that we're seeing people respond to, which is interesting. And for those, I would assume, what we're looking at is people who are still using Aspen or the TSPC 2.0 to do ship point creation and stuff like that. Great. Fascinating. Well, maybe this will migrate over completely in the next couple months. We'll see. Okay, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. Definitely get those in now if you haven't already, but I'll hand this over to Danielle in the meantime, talk about some of our resources.
Yes, thank you for running through all that content, Peter, and thank you for everybody in the chat just for engaging. We really love the participation. So just as we maybe wait for some questions to come through, I'll just call out some of our resources. So if you're looking for more hands-on material that you can just go and look back to, we have multiple ebooks that cover a variety of topics from different retailers. The ones you see up on the screen are some of our most popular, but some recent ones that we've released that have also just been so helpful suppliers is like a Walmart's departments, categories, and fine lines cheat sheet. And then we've also released the fiscal calendar for Walmart for next year. So those resources are all available on our website. You can download it whenever you would like to. It looks like we didn't have any come through. So if you think of a question later or would like to share any insight, please feel free to reach out to us on our emails. They are up there on the slide, or you can find us at supplypike.com. We would love to continue the conversation with you. But that is all that we have content-wise. We are now going to move into the product preview for our Walmart solution, and Peter is going to do that for us.
Yeah. I just wanted to shout out, Julie mentioned in the chat that she's not seeing ship point management in hers yet either. Sorry, I'm exiting out there. And that she's still using Aspen. So that's probably some helpful information. Yeah, I think what the information that we're receiving maybe is really cutting edge. Maybe it means that Aspen isn't going away. That it's like Nova or APDP, it's still something that people can use, and Walmart isn't trying to do a kind of long-term replacement for that. Okay, well, we talked a little bit about deductions management in the deductions section of SupplierOne. What we want to talk about here is a really completely different way of thinking about deductions from the APDP model, from the SupplyerOne model, and a way that is a little bit more supplier friendly, that will take out a lot of the time and the pain points that doing validity checks on deductions and disputing deductions takes. So I'd really like to spend a little bit of time just here on this dashboard quickly, but I won't take too much of your time. We'll probably keep this to about 5 minutes. And I'd assume some of you are current customers already, so I won't get too much into the weeds here either, but just kind of cover some of the coolest things. We have first of all, our new demo page is called Dunder Mifflin, which hopefully that's not a copyright infringement, but I thought that was really cute and fun. This is all demo data, so it's from real data, but it's not actual data. Want to call that out. We're not sharing anyone's personal information here, but this is something similar to what we see a lot of the time with our current customers. We can really take all of the information that you have. We can talk about what you've done with SupplyPike and what you've done without SupplyPike, but want to call out our dispute win rate. We can look at that here too. You can see, how are we doing with this new app? Is it actually paying out for us or not? You can look at all these different buckets. What's in Walmart research? What's in supplier action? What is the stuff that we really need to focus on? You could look at it there. And then you can break down by deduction code. You can do some of this in SupplierOne as well, but it's really helpful to have that high level information too. You can read more about what these deduction codes actually are by clicking into more info, and you can sort by count too if you don't want to sort by amount. So that's all that. I really want to highlight though, because it helps people understand people understand the app more if we can look at some of these individual deductions. And let's do a 25 if we can. We can look into a 25 here really quick. All right, so here we have a $1,200 claim on a code 25. And we can look at a little bit of what it is the SupplyPike product is really doing. So how do we do validity checks without you doing any work? Well, we have aggregated dispute documents. This will give us a sense of whether this is likely to be valid or invalid. In this case, we have an expired one. But we do that by looking at the purchase order, looking at the invoice, invoice received report, and the claim itself. When we take all of that, we scan all those documents and we can figure out, okay, is this something that is actually worth your while to dispute or not? So really important information there. I think these may be, let's try this. Not disputed. We can look at the deduction history down here, and the order information is all laid out there too. One last thing that I want to call out before I send you all on your way is our auto dispute function. So we do validity without you having to do anything. We can do disputing without you having to do anything either. Some of this makes suppliers nervous because they'll be afraid of just kind of sending Walmart a bunch of disputes for everything anyways. But it's something that we tend to recommend. I've been talking about code 25s here a little bit. Maybe we don't want to dispute, we don't want to auto dispute all of them. Once the documents are attached, we can do just the ones that are definitely invalid. So we're just going to dispute invalid code 25s, but we get a bunch of invalid 24s as well, and we'll just do all of our shortage codes here too. We'll do that. We don't have a selection here for valid, right? So if the validity is unclear, this is basically something that It could be invalid, and there is still a chance that Walmart will pay it back. So we'll do that, but we won't give you an option to dispute fines that we've decided are pretty much guaranteed to be valid, because yeah, we don't want to spam Walmart. You can also set a deduction amount limit too. Walmart doesn't have a cutoff for like fines under this dollar amount we won't accept disputes for. So you could set that to 0. You could do whatever, and then you can save those changes. And that will save even SupplyPike users a lot of time too. Even if you do have automated validity checks, you have automated one-click disputing or something like that. It may be something that, there's a whole bunch of these that we don't need to look at. We don't need to actually do any more research on it because the invalidity is clear. So we're going to save those changes, and then we won't have to deal with them. Or you could say under a certain dollar amount, we want to check all of these as long as it's under $1,000 or something like that. If it's bigger than that, well, we do want to know about it, and we want to research it. We want to do some root cause analysis on it, for example, and to try to get to the bottom of what's actually going on here. You could do that and dispute them as well. But again, yeah, some people sometimes get a little nervous with that. Oops. All right. So that's our product. If you have any more questions about that, you can go to supplypike.com, schedule a demo if you want to see if this is right for you. Basically, we'll integrate with your retail link, and we can figure out, do you have a bunch of these deductions that can be auto disputed for you? We have a bunch of other products in major retailers as well. So and someone like an Amazon, you have co-ops are a much bigger kind of bucket of revenue loss than they are at a Walmart. We have post audits now as something that you can look at with Walmart too. So yes, all of this information can be aggregated and put into one place to make sure that is going on. If you're interested in that, Danielle just put the link in the chat. You can schedule a demo there. All right, but I think that's it for us today. Thank you for joining us.
Have a great day. We will see you all next time.